Hello, everyone. This is Steve Butler, Los Angeles cryptologic analyst, and I've found another communication from Friar David Collins, aka Albert Lee Terry Jr., who I believe to be the mastermind in the Nancy Guthrie abduction. Um, let's just get into it. So I was on eBay and I saw these two cards, right? Look pretty nice. I was able to recognize the style, though. There is a certain style in the address area that generally gives me a clue that Albert Lee is somehow involved in that particular communication. I really like the way they're wrapped. They're very clean. This is special. This is special. He seems to be trying to send a clear message. I think that's why these are so professionally done. Cryptology is funny. It is an extension of the individual who is creating the code. And a lot of his stuff is really complicated and it's pushed together and you have to really dig to see the codes. But he is making absolutely sure that the person who receives this knows that this is a clear message. So let's get into it a little bit. So you get this kind of, production stuff, but then you get the single card because he wants the person to be able to see it. And on eBay, you can enlarge it. Now, what really caught my attention is I've seen this guy before, right? This picture before. So from my previous experience, this person, whatever his real name is a hitman. Now, I could be completely wrong. If for some reason the person that this photo belongs to is not a hitman, I sincerely apologize. If you are a hitman, you're a professional and you do what your assignment is or you don't do it. So I'm not trying to get into your business. But what I'm trying to do is find Nancy Guthrie and get her returned. So that's why I am decoding this message. It's not about you. I'm also a professional. So let's just leave that at that. So now that we've moved beyond that, I didn't really get into the rest of this stuff. What I did is I downloaded this and I wanted to see if there was a message. So there's not a really complicated message in this. Like I said, he wanted to send a clear message. So I downloaded it and then put it in a PNG form, which allows me to save it and add markers to it a little bit better. I'm going to put up my notepad, right? And I'm going to raise this up. And the first thing I want you to notice is that out of all the names, right, this individual is the only one that has a middle initial and a mark. So we have Alex, what looks like Xander, Alexander J. Senton is what we believe we have, right? I want you to look a little bit closer. So as you can see right here, that is not action A, that is a hockey player. So number 2, notice that the X, that the A next to the X is a hockey player. That is Albert Lee Terry Jr.'s marker. It's in a lot of his communications. It's his personal thing. He has been hiding in Canada as Friar David Collins of Saint John Apostle, Kingston, Ontario, Canada, and is now under investigation for the embezzlement of $630,000. Not to mention he's a serial killer. An American serial killer from the late 60s and on. All right, so that's your hockey player right there. He's got a pad on his leg and a little skinny thing right there that's not really an A, right? And then you have the LAE. So that's Alex, Albert Lee. So 3, we have the A, L, and the E. So that equals Albert Lee, right? Then the N sideways is Zodiac. Just breaking down the code for you. So N equals Z, which equals Zodiac. He was an ex-member of the Zodiac, which was a group, not a lone killer. All right? So that's what that is. And then this RED or DER is a person we've identified. If I'm wrong, please excuse me, but it adds up. Robert Dennis. I keep his last name quiet. He is the son of an ex-Zodiac member. Named Joe from Northern California. Now deceased. But seems to be the main person that Albert Lee works with. So I don't know what that mark is right there. But somehow this last part is a code. I'm going to try to decode it really quickly. I'm not 100% positive. So the N equals Z, which equals Zodiac, slash, and then the OT, I believe, equals Ontario. So that would be Ontario, Canada. And then you have another N, which equals Z, which equals Zodiac. So we've got Zodiac, Ontario to Zodiac, and then there is something that I can't figure it out. So it's supposed to be an I and an S, so we'll put I. So there's a line, there seems to be a pipe, and a symbol. And I'm just going to put a question mark next to it. So something, if it was an I and an S, I would say that this is, or SI, he's saying this is signal intelligence. So signal intelligence. So Albert was associated with the United States Navy, and in the life that he had with the Zodiac, they were intelligence officers, enlisted people, and a few others. So that's their lineage. That's what, and he was one of the main coders. How he learned how to code, I don't know. 'Cause I don't think he was an intelligence officer, but he definitely had the skills. So a dot is an E, but here it might just be a symbol. So this is a signal intelligence communication going from Albert Lee, the hockey player, and then there's this. The X is something, I think it's just saying hi, that's me, right? So I'm just going to put that down, that the X is a symbol representing hello. So this is a way for them to communicate without calling each other on the phone or sending emails, a traceable line of communication. Right? So Albert Lee says hello. There's my symbol, Zodiac, Robert Dennis, sending or throwing to you or boomeranging something, a signal intelligence communication, right? From Zodiac headquarters in Ontario. That's basically that. Here is the image of the individual that will be heading your way for you to be in contact with, because they have to give the picture for whatever this guy is doing. And now the question is what is this guy doing? So in our investigation into the Nancy Guthrie abduction, there are Liebig trading cards like these that were found early in the abduction in February, early March, and they were pretty obvious codes, right? And I think one was, let's see, so how you spell Mina backwards? So it would be ANIM, and then it was UAX, right? So that was the code. That was the code on an image that had a girl with dark hair taking care of a beautiful older lady. I went on the internet and put in Mina, U of A, and found a girl who looked exactly like the card. Like you couldn't tell the difference between the two people. And let's see if I have time here. I might be able to actually find that for you. Where would that be? I had it in different places. So what would it be? The X is Zuma? Yeah. Lucky for us, it didn't take me too long. All right, so this is the card, the Liebig trading card that I was talking about. There's the code. We believe that this Liebig trading card was created to alert the group that once Nancy Guthrie was abducted, Mina would take care of her in a sanctuary with a guard. We believe that that sanctuary is represented right here, partially as the structure that would be the St. Thomas More Catholic Church on the campus of the University of Arizona in Tucson, right? Let's see if we can do this really quickly, and maybe it'll still work, right? Mina, U of A. Alright. Mina, University of Arizona. Worked the other day. Here we go. So, there is Mina Chuligan, right? And did I have that picture up? No. We'll just go to it really quickly. Desktop 2026. Zoom. Okay. We'll do like that. And we'll drop that. And we will bring this up. Move it over. In your opinion, in my opinion, those two people look exactly alike, right? Right. So I would not know who she was or have found her or been able to trace that but for this card and that code. It's impossible for that to be a coincidence, in my opinion, unless I'm just the great Karnak. So that being said, right, let me drop this and let's go to this. I believe that this anti-malaria, which is the United Nations program, which would be to stomp out a disease, right? So I believe that the clear message here is that this guy, the hitman, the message is from Albert Lee to Robert Dennis, excuse me. So I'm going to say the message, anti-malaria, clear message, is a program to eliminate a disease. I don't know how to spell. To eliminate a disease. If you kidnapped somebody and you murdered somebody, the disease would be a witness. So I believe malaria equals witnesses, or people he believes are going to be the kind of people that would roll over on him, right? And one of those would be Mina. So 10, I believe, we're going to edit this a little bit. So I'm going to mark it up. And I'm going to use this color right here, the orange. I believe that the I'll just go over the posters. It might be a clue. I don't care. It's not that important. The M and the A of malaria stands for Mina. So he's sending the hitman, I believe, to eliminate Mina. Okay, so MA equals Mina. 11. So I'm not going to go through the whole thing like I did with Mina because I don't think I need to prove that again. But we found another person the same way, and same type of card, same type of code, really simple, and it was Sister Lynn Alvin, Catholic.org. Which is the same organization that is associated with the St. Thomas More Church Newman Center, Tucson, Arizona. So I believe that the MA is Mina and that the LAR is Sister Lynn Alvin, right? So we're going to put that down as LAR equals Sister Lynn Alvin. I think what people should be asking themselves is, okay, are we going to believe that this is some kind of robbery gone wrong, right? Or are we going to actually accept that we don't understand the ransom notes, we don't understand the kidnapping and how it's moved, we don't understand the type of communication that has not taken place, and that this is something extremely different than what we're used to. And that these things that I do, decoding these different types of letters, envelopes, and postcards, as strange as it sounds, if you look at the videos I put together, I consistently am able to find letters, alphabets, and images that are consistent with the people that I have named as one, the mastermind and co-conspirators, each and every time. At some point, when you keep falling into a rut, it becomes a groove. There's only so much coincidence before you have to accept that it's true. So he thinks, and I think in his mind, that these are the weak links, right? So we're going to mark LAR as Sister Lynn Alvin, but as part of the code. So we're going to mark that up. I'm doing this to try to convince law enforcement to listen to me. You have no idea how hard that is. Not to disparage them, but they're not used to, this is not their type of crime, right? They're used to burglars and pickpockets and gang members. This is sophisticated stuff, right? And you would say, well, then if it's that sophisticated, why don't you just let the FBI handle it? Because there's a complication there. Albert Lee Terry Jr. in 1971 sent a proffer to the Vallejo FBI, right, in an effort to request to be in what was the first year of the official witness protection program. And there's a book by a guy by the name of Lafferty called Silence Badge. And he talks about a sergeant at the Vallejo Police Department who was told to burn his records and to never mention the name of the guy he had been talking to. Well, the first letters of this amateur astrologer, right, were going to a sergeant at the Vallejo Police Department. It's redacted in the Freedom of Information that was released from the FBI on the Zodiac case. So if he did get into that program, his introduction went through the FBI. And for whatever reason, right, they felt that it was in the national security, at least then, for a sergeant at the Vallejo PD who Lafferty said took his job seriously and his allegiance to the United States, and just took them at face value that it was a national security thing, and took the secret to his grave of who the person was that they were talking about. Well, Albert Lee Terry Jr. is from Vallejo, right? His house is central to all the murders that took place as the conical murders in the Zodiac from the Benicia area. And between the two killers that were in the group, Albert Lee Terry Jr. is the one with the modus operandi of a gun, a 9mm. At least at the Lake Herman Road thing. And in my conversation with the person I believe was Albert Lee Terry Jr., who thought that I wasn't going to be on the earth much longer because of this guy or a guy like this guy, he told me that the reason why some people thought they saw one person in the car and some people thought they saw two persons in the car, because the other guy that's part of the Zodiac, that was the person identified at Lake Berryessa, his friend, whose name is Charlie, which is the answer to the Z13 cipher, Asians in known moniker Charlie, VC, Victor Charlie, shortened Charlie by the United States service members, that's the answer, was drunk and passed out. So he was laying down in the car, and maybe after the shooting he sat up or while they were driving, but he was saying Charlie was out of it. He was coming back and forth, and that explained why that was true. And no one would know that. right? I mean, no one would even come up with that as a lie. Nobody. If you asked all these experts about the zodiac about why they thought people, it would be, well, the angle, witnesses are, not reliable. They thought they saw this. It was dark. They be talking about the moonlight versus the street lights. Just all of that crap, right? That would be what people would talk about. This guy tells me you're not going to be around, so here's your answer. Charlie was drunk, right? Probably because he's not really a killer. Every crime scene that Charlie was involved in the Zodiac conical murders, there was a witness that was left over. The ones that we believe Albert was involved in, no witnesses were left. Albert is a technician. And so over the years, he has been in other high profile cases that are now cold cases. So we don't think that it's a coincidence. For some reason, he's been able to escape justice. And we believe that, like in, the situation with Whitey Bulger, right? The FBI sometimes do tolerate crimes of people that they've been attached to for whatever reasons. I think Whitey Bulger was giving them intelligence that helped them solve other cases. Albert Lee Terry Jr. couldn't give them anything other than the fact that he knew something that the government didn't want out, and he basically used that as extortion to stay free. And it seems that that's breaking down, and that is not that important anymore, and that there may be other ways out of it. And I believe that he finally bit off more than he can chew. He kidnapped somebody that people care about. I don't think people cared about the Ramseys because he was involved in that. He's the guy that wrote the ransom note. If you look at it closely, it has all of his coding techniques in it, and you've never heard anybody talk about it. There's no handwriting expert on the planet Earth that can't see that in the JonBenet Ramsey ransom note that the letters look like pictures and pictures look like letters. It has to be a coordinated effort to continue to feed information to the public to believe that Patsy Ramsey wrote that complicated note. Even on the face of it, that you can read the letters without knowing their pictures, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for somebody to create something that elaborate that's trying to cover up a crime of passion under a tight schedule that they have to call the police about the murder and death of their daughter. Why would you write 3 pages? You would just say, we got your daughter. This is how much money we want. We'll be in contact with you. If you were going to write a cover story. So the efforts that I put forward is to try to bring Albert Lee Terry Jr. to justice before he does more harm. And if you think that he is old, and he is, probably 89, 88, something like that, and that he's not dangerous, you're wrong. Because based on this communication, he's about to take out Mina and Sister Lynn Alvin in Arizona. 12 is IA. I don't think that's short for Iowa. In Arizona. So no matter what anybody thinks or wants to say about me, Stephen Butler, and the propaganda that they put out there about the work that I do, and how in the world could I consistently tell you it's the same people, the same thing, the same scenario over so many different pieces of communication, right? So the only thing would be is that this is a hoax, that he's just doing it because he has nothing else to do and it's not related to anything. Do you really believe that? Nancy Guthrie is not a hoax. She's gone, right? And if I'm right about this type of information, they're consistently talking about her being somewhere, her remains being somewhere in the St. Thomas More Catholic church on the campus of the University of Arizona, 18 minutes from her house. Newman Center. I'd get a cadaver dog and I'd walk through there and look for a hit. Now, you probably can get a hit from a funeral, true, right? But obviously, I don't think they buried her above ground. I don't think. I mean, I'm not positive, right? But I used to be an altar boy. If you have a casket, it's right in front of the altar. It's not going to be all over the place. So you're looking for a hit somewhere different than where the casket would be, which generally would be right down the middle of the aisle to the front of the altar. In an earlier video, there was a beach scene where they looked like there was 2 cabinet areas, right? And I associated that, I believe, with a picture that might have been the St. Thomas More Newman Center at Tempe, because it had those arches directly over the doors over the altar. But when I found a picture of what seemed to be the St. Thomas More Newman Center Catholic Church at the University of Arizona, you can see those same 2 arches directly on the side walls as inlaid areas in that church. So the analysis stands that card had entered the church, go past the pews, right? That's exactly what it looks like. Let me see if I can find that really quickly, because that seems to be a bone of contention that an individual is using to dismiss that lead, which is really weird because they say that they're taking every lead seriously. Why would you communicate back to me that there might have been a small discrepancy that we could have talked about to clear up, but you actually were trying to discourage me from continuing my investigation? That's what really set me off. I was like, why would you do something like that? That was very strange. But it is what it is. So we're going to do that. We're going to bring that to the desktop. I'm going to bring this down. I'm going to bring this picture up. I'm going to take full screen. And I'm going to show you what that is. So in the beach card, there were pews, right? So it was like enter the church. There were pews. So you're going past the pews. This right here is exactly what those cabinet areas look like. In the one in Tucson, they were at the altar over the doors on the side. Now, there are windows that could also represent that, but see here, there are small altars, another area. So it's absolutely consistent to enter in. And then there was another one where they were using kind of a railroad figure that looked just like this. And then there would be the 2 cabinet of areas, right? And then it seemed to recess back to stairs, right? The pier was stairs. So these are stairs, right? She is somewhere back here. So I don't know how you get to where the priests change clothes. When I was an altar boy, there's always an access area adjacent to the sides of the altar. But based on that Liebig trading card that had a picture of Sister Lynn Alvin, Mina, Joyce, I believe a picture of the guy who is the center of the lawsuit by the Liberty Council that I believe is the motive that these people had, which was him being fired from the University of Arizona because of his activities at the Cantalina Foothills Elementary School in regards to him objecting to the pronoun list being private and not shared with parents of potential LGBTQ kids who were afraid that their parents might, violently react to the fact that they seem to be thinking that they may want to be or are LGBTQ. So he was sitting on the pile in that Liebig card as in she's buried because of him. I believe that they kidnapped her, right, because of Savannah Guthrie's fame, figuring that one, they can strike a blow for their cause, right, or two, that they might actually get money to use as a slush fund for financing the litigation against that lawsuit, or to mitigate any negative impacts personally on people named or institutions named in case of an adverse verdict in that civil lawsuit, which they would consider an adverse verdict being Liberty Counsel winning. And you can't just sit here in front of a computer and put all those things together. At that point, you're saying, why Catalina Foothills? Why Nancy Guthrie? Why Savannah Guthrie? At that point, it all makes sense. I'm Steve Butler. That's my presentation. If you don't take this seriously and you continue to believe that I'm just making this up, right? Or you are a part of an organization that thinks that the lives of Nancy Guthrie and Savannah Guthrie don't matter because she's famous and she's rich and Nancy was old, are you really going to condone this? Because if those two people end up murdered, this video is already going to be published. And if you think what you're trying to hide is really bad, if these two people get murdered, I definitely don't have anything to do with it. Why would I be telling on myself? And you've been following me for 3 years, so you know where I am, and you know I don't talk to anybody. And I've been fighting for this to work. So trying to turn it on me is not going to work, which I've seen people try to do on public platforms that I've been putting this information on. There are going to be some reporters who are finally not going to be afraid. And they're going to say that you knew that these people's lives were in danger. And then you didn't do anything about it. And then all the stuff that you tried to hide, they're going to say, well, why would they do that? It's going to come out. Why not control what they call the narrative? You know, Zodiac as a group was trying to end the Vietnam War and save lives. There's your answer. Any part of what took place, they may already have amnesty based on a couple of CIA documents that I saw, but maybe not. Maybe not, because that's why you're going through this whole thing. President Trump never liked the Vietnam War. I don't think he'd have any problem, right, if he got the complete and total story of what these people were trying to do. And even though they took very desperate measures, he's old enough to remember how violent and how crazy the 60s were. He would understand that it's a different mindset. It was a different time. Maybe he doesn't condone what they do, but he is a man of action. And he's like, sometimes people will just take matters into their own hands. Now, he may condone that. I don't think that's the right thing to do, but I don't see any way that he wouldn't mind pardoning certain people, right, for any military or federal crimes that they may be guilty of in order to maintain the positions in retirement that they have or the benefits for their families as survivors of their death, in order to bring the reign of probably one of America's most lethal, unknown, most sought at, most known serial killers in its history. I'm Steve Butler, and that's my presentation.